I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'd like to introduce you all, Katie Rodriguez.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Katie Rodriguez. Alex and I met over 20 years ago in Washington, D.C., both in our first jobs out of college. A few years later, I convinced Alex to move up to New England. We lived in Somerville, the Fenway, and Jamaica Plain before we settled in Melrose in 2016. So how did we get here at a VFW on a Sunday afternoon, launching a campaign for city council? Well, it all started last mayoral race. We were flipping through the seemingly endless pile of mail that collects over the week, and Alex stopped at 2 flyers. One of them was sent by a political party offering a slate of endorsed local candidates, and another was by an individual candidate that led with their political affiliation. Alex paused and was clearly bothered. He explained that he firmly believes that municipal elections should be nonpartisan, so that they prioritize the issues facing our city without partisan distraction. Now, I'll be honest, I thought about this for about a minute, and I threw the flyers in the recycling. But Alex, never the wallflower, reached out to the candidate, and the candidate responded. And they listened, and the two had a productive conversation. And that moment, as small as it seems, planted a seed for Alex. It reinforced that if you care enough to speak up, people will listen. And if you care enough to show up, you can make change. Alex is running for Melrose City Council because he believes in thoughtful, honest, community-centered leadership. Leading with the issues that are top of mind for us here in Melrose, and the belief that we need all voices to tackle those issues. Many of you may know Alex. Some of you may have experienced his very passionate coaching style, either on the basketball court or the baseball field. By the way, he gets that from his father. You can ask him about church league basketball. You may know him through his work at the Bridge or through volunteering at the Hoover School. He may have engaged you in a conversation about Texas, but more likely TCU football.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know Alex, I will share that he is kind and empathetic and passionate and principled. He is not afraid to challenge those in power and give a voice to those who feel they are not heard. So with no further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome a friend, a neighbor, my husband, and the next city councilor for Ward 7, Alex Rodriguez.
How's everyone doing tonight? Oh, come on, you can do better than that. How's everyone doing tonight? Atta way. There you go. Well, good evening, and thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I'm extremely grateful that you've joined us this evening, and let me just say one thing. It is a great night to be in Melrose, Massachusetts. I first want to thank our friends here at the VFW. They're incredible hosts, and if we have any vets in the room, let me just start by saying welcome home. I also want to give a special thank you to my beautiful wife, Katie, for the generous introduction. My boys, Charlie and Sam, who are my heart and soul. My mom, where is mom anyway? Oh, there she is. There she is. My mom, who had the courage to move to Massachusetts 3 years ago after spending the first 73 years of her life in Texas. I want to say that I love you all with every fiber of my being, and I could not take on such an endeavor without your love and support. To know my family is to know me. I stand before you tonight as the son and grandson of veterans, immigrants, teachers, and trailblazers who built an incredible legacy by always putting others before themselves. My dad came to the U.S. from Mexico as a young child, not knowing a word of English, and eventually would find himself serving this country in combat in the jungles in Vietnam. He would eventually go to law school where he met my mother, the daughter of a teacher and a refinery worker who'd served in World War II. Mom and Dad would go on to become accomplished attorneys and were amazing parents who understood the incredible privilege it is to be called an American. And one of the greatest honors of my life has been to call myself one of their own. Now, you might have figured this out by now, but I grew up a little south of here. But I moved to Massachusetts with Katie in 2008 and came to Melrose almost 9 years ago. Initially, we came here because we wanted great schools and more space, like a lot of people did, right? Well, we got that. We got that and a lot more. We got a community whose values are rooted in kindness and generosity, and I cannot think of a better place to raise a family. But we're all here tonight because we love our community. And all of us know that Melrose is at a crossroads and facing a set of difficult choices that will chart our long-term future. Melrose is currently confronting endless budgetary calamity that is the result of an absence of long-term planning, historical underfunding, a lack of leadership, oversight, and accountability. Political actors of all stripes, elected and unelected, have sought to divide our community with bad faith politics and an unchecked indulgence to the loudest voices in the room, all while failing to address the current and future needs of Melrose that will ensure the long-term success of our city. We have a majority of the City Council who is clearly more interested in addressing national politics with meaningless and cheap political stunts rather than using their positions to pressure the mayor to fully fund our schools and addressing the issues staring us in the face. It simply does not have to be this way anymore. And this November, Ward 7 is going to have a choice, a real choice. A choice that will forcefully advocate that our schools are always fully funded, instead of paying lip service to voters about how much our elected officials care about our kids. A choice that will see our budget align with our values, and instead of dividing us, seek to bring us together as one community, ready to take on any challenge. A choice that will always value your input and will fight a political machine in Melrose that prioritizes its needs and ambitions over our elected officials, political parties, and special interest groups. You see, I'm here tonight to remind us that the political inertia that's holding Melrose back will only exist if we let it. And my friends, we do not have to settle for this anymore. And in that spirit, I'm here tonight to ask for your help in driving change. I'm here tonight to humbly ask for your support and your vote on November 4th to be your next city councilor from Ward 7. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because at the end of the day, I'm just a dad who thinks he can serve his community for the better. But I'm no different than you. Like you, I want a better life for my kids. Like you, I want to make sure that Melrose will maintain the quality of life that makes it the wonderful city that it is. Like you, I want to live in a city where the ties that bind us together will always be stronger than the forces that attempt to divide us. And from a personal perspective, I want to enrich my own children's faith in democracy so that one day they can tell their kids and grandkids about this undertaking with pride and remind them that the greatest joys in life will always come from serving a cause greater than yourself. But the main reason I offer my candidacy is because our city's in trouble. Right now in Melrose, we are seeing the majority of our elected officials, as well as other local political actors, refuse to provide a check on any of the mayor's initiatives and shudder at the mention of any real accountability. And tonight, I say to those who are contributing to such dysfunction that change is coming, and it starts right here, right now. Now, this fall, I'll be running against Councilor Devin Romano. Let me start by saying that Councilor Romano is a good and decent man. And anyone who's willing to stand for political office and serve their community deserves our appreciation. This campaign, however, will not be shy in illustrating the differences between us. And tonight, I will highlight this contrast, and then we will take our message of accountability and reform door by door and voter by voter And my friends, when we do this, we will win. Well, we have a lot of issues to flesh out between now and November. Tonight, I primarily want to focus on how we provide a competitive education to our kids, maintain fiscal discipline, and foster a political culture that puts our people before our politicians. You see, to me at least, it has become abundantly clear that there is a lack of trust in the City Council to conduct meaningful oversight of how our budgets are actually implemented. What many of our elected officials do not seem to grasp is that trust is earned, and real oversight is the means by which you earn it. But this is yet to occur. And one way to rebuild it is to implement internal budgetary controls that would foster a good faith conversation about the kind of city in which we want to live. For example, line items need to be clearly defined and publicly searchable through the city's website as they are funded. And we need to require zero-based budgeting for all city departments to ensure that we maintain fiscal discipline. But even with such reforms, it will still be paramount for our community to make the necessary investments to properly fund our current and future needs. To date, Melrose has consistently been given a set of bad choices. We have been presented with having to choose between override initiatives with vague language and a 50-50 chance of passage, and in the case of the one currently being discussed, won't even give the superintendent a fighting chance to execute his vision, or doing nothing and watching our city decay. But many of our local political actors of every stripe have not told you the truth. One side will tell you if we spend nothing, everything will remain the same, or we'll return to economic circumstances in Melrose that haven't existed in decades. Let me say this. This is false, period. And those who have led this kind of rhetoric know it. This falsehood has led to increasing class sizes and threatens to potentially result in school closings, and it is time for those who are perpetuating it to actually have to substantiate their claims with facts. Now, the other side characterizes those who merely demand some level of oversight and accountability as uncaring as it relates to our children and supporting mediocrity. They want voters to write a check and expect them to never ask about it again, which is stunning given MPS's track record in not being forthcoming with their own stewardship of our tax dollars. They even go so far as to degrade those who have real questions about how they plan to ensure that we will not see a repeat of the not too distant past. At a recent council meeting, one counselor, in fact, even referred to those who do not trust our elected officials as it relates to these matters as ignorant. Such hubris is simply appalling, shameful, and tone deaf, and we can no longer afford to have elected officials who delegitimize the honest and completely reasonable concerns of their constituents by insulting them, and it is time for them to go. Councilor Romano showed no interest in providing any kind of budgetary oversight. In FY25, he supported every line item in the mayor's budget while only asking 3 questions throughout the entire budgeting process for a budget that totaled over $100 million. That, my friends, is a complete failure in governance. And it is time for councilors who are willing to ask the most difficult questions without regard to the political consequences, because the financial sustainability of our city depends on it. The budget currently being presented by Mayor Grigoritis and supported by Councilor Romano in no way reflects any prioritization of our schools, even with an override. But if an override were to be rejected, it would be catastrophic for our schools, plain and simple. For example, Sam over here is looking at the prospect of being in a class of 29 kids. The high school, or second graders at the Winthrop are going to have a similar experience. The high school and the middle school are looking at the prospect of sharing a principal. Some of our best and brightest teachers are going to lose their jobs. And the result of this decline won't just be bad schools. It won't. This will eventually kill our property values, and it cannot be acceptable anymore. Let me be clear. I support an override because the consequences of one not passing would be disastrous, not because this is an effective way to fund our schools or that the amount of money is enough to steer us in the right direction. Neither of that is true. In my view, we need to fund our schools through the regular budgeting process as much as possible. Such an approach avoids putting MPS in the precarious position in which it currently resides. But the truth is, even in this scenario, we might need to fund some other city functions through overrides. These services, however, are overwhelmingly popular and would likely pass. I cannot imagine a Melrose that would oppose funding for the Milano Center, Memorial Hall, or several other city functions. But to move to such an approach requires a counselor who will never sit silent while cuts are continuously made on the backs of our kids, and you can count on me to never, ever, ever back down from a fight when it comes to our schools. You see, because if I were on the council and the mayor was looking for my support for a budget such as the one currently under debate, I would publicly and unambiguously oppose it. Challenge the mayor to use every dime of political capital she has to enact it unilaterally if she wanted, and push her to actually bring forth a budget that would enable more sustainable funding of our schools. If elected, I will not support a budget that does not attempt to fund a greater proportion of our schools' finances through the regular budgeting process, and will oppose override language within the council that is not detailed and specific as to how money will be allocated. But much like doctors, the first responsibility of an elected official is to do no harm. If my efforts fail, I will support overrides once they have been approved by the council for public referendum, because the consequences of their defeat will result in self-inflicted injury for Melrose. And I refuse to ever be a party to that. One more thing as it relates to our schools and how we fund them. I believe we have a moral duty to have well-equipped educational environments for kids with special needs and their families for whom our schools are often a lifeline. To me, at least, this particular part of our school budget is the most reflective of who we are and who we want to be as a city. As it relates to our politics, this is where our values need to begin and end. As a man of deep faith, committed to uplifting the forgotten and the marginalized, these are where my values begin and end. And tonight, I want to say to those families with children that have special needs that you have my word that I will always stand with you and fight for your kids. But concerns around our budget or our product is something far more problematic. To our detriment, we have at times let our national politics seep into the civic discourse of Melrose, into the civic discourse of Melrose. This often intentional and cynical divisiveness has been driven by political parties, political action committees, and those seeking an upwardly mobile career in politics or some form of unchecked incumbency, and has often led to an inability to address the bigger structural problems we face. You see, when political parties and PACs exert their influence, they do so with an expectation of getting a disproportionate access that would never happen for the individual citizen, or representation that will simply and reflexively support their agenda. As it relates to my candidacy, I would rather lose than ever have to answer to a political party or a political action committee, period. That is why I stand before you tonight to make a solemn pledge. I will not accept a dime from a political action committee or resources or assistance from any political party in what are supposed to be nonpartisan elections. I also ask that they not spend resources on my behalf, and will publicly denounce any outside organization or political party that dedicates money or resources to my campaign, including those with whom I agree. Additionally, I will continuously update my donor list, which is on my website, my donor list, which is on my website, with their names, the cities in which they live, even my relationships to them. You'll see on there sometimes it says like third grade, their best friend since the third grade, or eighth grade baseball coach, you know, and how much they donated in real time. If Councilor Romano truly desires citizen governance, as he says he does, instead of a permanent political class that is often contemptuous of the very people it is supposed to represent, I invite him to sign this pledge right here to get the special interest money out of Melrose and have a campaign about the issues. In a similar spirit, my first proposal upon being elected will be the implementation of term limits for all elected officials. Term limits ensure that no one elected official or faction of them can entrench themselves in power indefinitely, fostering accountability and preventing the stagnation that comes with unchecked incumbency. In line with this commitment, I pledge to serve no more than 2 terms if elected to the City Council or run for higher office than the one I'm seeking. When my tenure on the council is over, it will be time for a new voice with fresh ideas to take Melrose to even greater heights. And also, let's face it, I will miss a lot of TCU sports. Councilor Romano's history, however, indicates a very different kind of commitment. He's been seeking political office since he was right out of college, when he ran for the state legislature from Mansfield in 2008, and then in 2012 when he ran for office in Somerville, before seeking office in Melrose in 2023. Additionally, his behavior on the council also indicates priorities that are not aligned with the needs of Ward 7. He has authored and passed 2 pieces of legislation, both of which were completely performative in nature and did not solve a single problem in Ward 7. Let me explain. For example, last month, Councilor Romano authored and passed an ordinance that would have enforced fines to get residents to remove snow and ice off the sidewalks in front of their homes. He has said that he wanted to address the issue because he had received a lot of input from constituents in Ward 7 regarding injuries and the dangers posed by the status quo. Although it needed a lot of fine-tuning, the initial spirit of the proposal appeared to be well-meaning. When the ordinance could not get out of committee, however, Councilor Romano stripped all of the enforcement provisions he had authored out of the ordinance to facilitate its passage. In other words, he knowingly passed an ordinance that cannot actually be enforced, and consequently does not address the serious problem that concerned his constituents in the first place. And at the end of the day, let's face it, it wasn't even worth the paper it was written on. My friends, this is not leadership in the form of compromise. It is nothing more than political fecklessness. And if Councilor Romano considers this a success, I would be afraid to ever find out what a failure might look like. Am I willing to compromise? Of course. But will I be willing to make compromises in exchange for passing legislation that literally does nothing except try to give the veneer of accomplishment? Absolutely not. Councilor Romano also co-authored a resolution calling for a ceasefire in the Middle East, knowing full well that was completely out of scope for any local government. Look, there are people in good faith with highly divergent views about this conflict. But let's face it, the only thing Councilor Romano did was inflame our community by throwing chum to the most partisan voices and divide our city down political, cultural, and religious fault lines, and he knows it. He often likes to say that he wants a government that happens with you, not one that happens to you. In reality, when he engages in such efforts like a meaningless snow removal ordinance or a self-aggrandizing attempt to bring peace to the Middle East, he is attempting to turn Ward 7 into his own personal political playground to benefit only himself, regardless of what it might mean for you and your community, or you and your family. This is the very essence of government happening to you. And it is time for us to say enough. And I'll make you another promise right now. If I see counselors engaging in such performative nonsense, you have my word that I will make them famous and you will know their names. My friends, on an important note, I want to be clear that there may be times where you might disagree with me vehemently, and that's okay. But it will be my job to listen to your concerns and have them shape how I represent our ward. At the end of the day, however, I will always vote my conscience. And you can trust that even when we disagree, I will have made every effort to find common ground, listen to your thoughts with an open mind and an open heart, and be respectful of the diversity of opinion in our ward. I am seeking to represent all of Ward 7. And understand that that is a great privilege to which I'm not entitled. I'm asking for your vote tonight because Melrose needs tangible, results-driven leadership that unites our city to solve the problems staring us in the face. But even though we have hurdles to clear, I have never been more optimistic about Melrose's future. We've seen the greatness of the city firsthand. And I know that no matter what challenges lie ahead, we will overcome them together as one community. And as this campaign moves forward, it's essential to never forget why we're here tonight. We're here tonight because we believe that Melrose can be a city of dreamers and doers committed to opportunity for all. That we can strengthen our city with strategic investments while also being fiscally responsible. That we can have a local government responsive to your needs and not the needs of self-serving politicians and the special interest groups they represent. But I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you and your energy to make this a reality. I need you to tell your neighbors about this effort and what we're trying to accomplish. More than anything, I need your vote on November 4th. But I have some questions for you tonight, and I need some answers. And those answers, my friends, need to be heard all the way down at City Hall. Will you join me in this fight? Will you fight with me to make sure that Melrose has a future where it will thrive and our children can pursue their dreams? Will you fight with me to bring accountability to the city council? He gets that from his mother. Will you join me in telling our local political establishment that Melrose belongs to its people, not its politicians, special interest groups, or political parties? Then let's do this. Let's do this together and ensure that Melrose's best days will always lie ahead. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.